Welcome to the PE Insights podcast, conversations about physical education with host Nathan Walker. This podcast is brought to you by the fantastic team at PE Scholar. We hope you enjoy listening and don't forget to follow and share.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the PE Insights podcast. I hope you've had a fantastic or are having a fantastic summer, depending on where you're listening to this in the world, and that you're looking forward to a new term ready to impact and change lives through physical education. Today I'm joined by Tom Darby. Tom is the Business Development Officer for the Leadership Skills Foundation. So today in the episode we explore Tom's insight around PE and his beliefs and reflecting on his career to date. But also we learn a little bit more about what the Leadership Skills Foundation can offer schools and physical education departments and beyond. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Hi, Tom. Welcome to the PE Insights podcast.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You're more than welcome. Thanks for joining me on this very dubious day of weather outside. Right, let's jump straight in. Tell us, the listeners, a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so we're going to go back quite a few years to when I was younger and sort of, I suppose, where my love of sport and mainly football began. So I was born down in just south of Bristol, Weston-super-Mare, and then moved up to the East Midlands, which is where I'm currently based now in Mansfield. And that was due to Dad, his job being a head teacher. So I moved up here to get a new post. My mum was also a teacher as well. And that was from the age of 4. But my earliest memory is always with a football underarm, going out, playing football on the garden when I was a bit older, going onto the park and sort of really enjoying playing football. Had a great memory of 1990 and watching the England in the World Cup, Italia 90. I say a great memory, that didn't end too well. And Chris Waddle was one of my icons. I used to love him playing football. So that penalty miss took a while for me to get over, never mind himself. So
and the rest of the country.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my earliest memory, really. And it obviously relates to sport straight away. So going through school, loved PE lessons, always wanted to play. Again, mainly sort of focused on football, but got involved in athletics, cross country, things like that as well, but football was always the go-to. From a young age, I was quite fortunate. I was good at football, so got scouted by the local team, Mansfield Town. Big shout out to them. Currently doing very well. Hopefully a promotion this year. Played football with them for a couple of years, and then moved on to play for Notts County, and that's where I spent my time from the age of sort of 11 or 12. So playing for them over weekend, in the evening going to training, and I was obviously at school at the same time. Once got to secondary school, or upper school as it was to me, so we started in year 9 in the area where I live. Right. Didn't probably have the greatest of experience of PE, if I'm honest. It was I don't know, not very engaging, and just sort of things that I didn't want to be part of. But because I had that football, that was my go-to, that was my get out, and when we were playing football matches or I had my training of an evening, then that was where my love was. Anybody asked me from the age of 4 up to 16, 17, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a footballer. That's all I ever wanted to be. And unfortunately, got to the age of 16. Notts County kind of said, it's not going to happen here. And that was really heartbreaking at the time because that's what I'd banked on. Did relatively well at school. Sort of got the grades I needed to. So at that point, it was sort of a stop. What do I need to do next? What do I want to do next? Do I want to continue playing football? Had the opportunity to go and try for a couple of local teams, but decided actually to go down the academic route. So headed off to college to do a BND, and that materialised. Then I went and did a HND. What came coming out of that? Looked at going to university, but at the same time, had my eldest child at the time, very, very young for myself. She's now just turned 18. So going to uni wasn't sort of an option at the time, finance-wise. So looked at going into sports coaching. Started working for a local company, went to work for them, and we went into schools. We delivered lunch clubs, after-school sessions, PPA, worked with teachers, ran sort of sports days, all those kind of things, and loved it, absolutely loved it. I can remember my first afternoon there. We walked out onto a field in the countryside, over a bridge, over a river, onto this field, rabbits running around. I've got these children, 4, 5 and 6, and we're playing games in the sun. And I'm thinking, this is brilliant. This is what PE is. These kids are loving life. I'm enjoying life, and it's great. So that kind of materialised from there. worked in a few different schools naturally through that role. But that came to an end in 2011, where unfortunately the company I worked for made us redundant. But I'd worked hard in schools. I'd formed good relationships with the staff there, and it went from me going into schools and saying, unfortunately, we're not here next week. It was literally, this is Thursday, Friday. As of next week, we're not here. Two of those schools offered me a position, one being part-time, and the one that I ultimately took was full-time. And I remember it to this day, Nathan, and I went in. It was quite an emotional time for me because I'm going from being made redundant. I'm going into having to let a school down, potentially let the pupils down, kind of go in and sort of say, and I will speak about this gentleman quite a bit. This is Matt Lawrence. And I went in and said to Matt, and I said, look, I'm ever so sorry, Matt, but as of next week, I'm not able to come in. Our company's not going anymore. And this was about 6 weeks before Christmas, so building up to Christmas as well. And within a blink of an eye, Matt said to me, come and work for me. And I sort of took a breath, and I was like, okay. And he said, whether it was true or not, he never sort of elaborated on it. But he said that morning he was driving to school, and he said for the next phase of that school and where he wanted it to get to be, which is ultimately be an outstanding school, he wanted PE to be elevated within that school. And he wanted someone in school that managed PE, led PE, and the kids had a buzz about PE. That was because of his love of PE. So he was brought up with sport, and his children played a lot of sport, which was amazing for me because I've gone from what am I doing next week to somebody putting their belief in me and going, I want you here. I want you to do this. So pretty much what I'd been doing in a few different schools, suddenly I was invited to be part of a school full time. So I think I said, I'll think about it. In my head, I'm going, it's a done deal, but I thought I'll play it cool. And anyway, went outside to deliver the lesson because I had a lesson to deliver, and he came out and sort of pulled me inside. I was working with another coach at the time, so we didn't leave him unsupervised. And went in, and he pretty much said, look, if you want the job, this is what I can offer you. This is your contract. This is what you'll get, and this is what I want, and this is where I want this school to get to. And to have somebody say that to you at a relatively young age, I walked away from that school just feeling wanted, which is a big part, and I'm sure a lot of people out there will agree. In employment, to feel wanted and to be given that sort of that confidence from leaders was massive to me. So that's where I kind of then went into working in education full time and based in a school. So his vision was, I want this school to basically not become the laughing stock. Turn up to events, let's look smart, let every kid get involved in PE, all those kind of things that I now look back on, I believe are essential to children. He wanted it, that was 13 years ago, and he wanted me to do that. So did that for a few years, went through various stages, went through Ofsted, got awards and things like that, which I'll reflect on a little bit later. And then got to the point where Matt had moved on and I wanted another challenge. So I thought, okay, I've done this in one school. Now's the chance to go and work within an academy and help other schools. And that's where I kind of saw myself going. So funnily enough, somebody who I'd worked for previously going into a school, bumped into in town, Christmas jumper day. And he kind of said, I've got a new challenge coming up. I might get in touch. This was head teacher at the time. And so didn't think anything more of it, kind of did the day job. And he got in touch and invited me to come and have a look around a school that he was moving to. And it was a school that had been sort of not held in high regard in the local area, but was being taken over by a trust. And didn't really know too much about trust at the time, I will be honest. And went to have a look around, was offered an interview, delivered the interview, and was offered the job. So went to work there and absolutely loved it. We went from these children not doing regular PE, no teams, no competitions, no engagement, very little outside of school. And I went there and we had a fab team around us, other people that were enthused by sport, and the head teacher, Nottingham Forest fan, loved this sport as well. So went there, spent a couple of years there, and as I say, absolutely loved it, from seeing these children and the parents from not really being offered a lot to then suddenly having masses and masses. And we took strides and strides those couple of years. And then ultimately a bigger and sort of better opportunity came along, and it was a bigger trust, which was the Flying High Trust, which is one of the biggest in definitely in our area in Nottinghamshire, possibly in the country, which was 31 schools. Went over there to work for Grant, who was the head teacher at the previous school, West Park, and went there to be the PE specialist within Mapplewells, but then also a curriculum lead across the trust, which was, for me, career-wise, that's kind of where I was wanting to be. And I was involved in the curriculum planning across the schools, supporting the schools, looking at PE premium, how to basically elevate their PE and sport provision within their school to ultimately give pupils what they deserve and to have that experience while they're younger. And different schools, again, through your experience, you'll know different schools are at different levels. Some are very much advanced and doing, again, what I feel they should be. Other schools are just starting out for whatever reason, and they just need that little bit of guidance. So I did that, love that. And then COVID struck, came in, and that sort of held back a little bit on where that career path was going, and it was a little bit more teaching side rather than the sort of consultancy side and the curriculum lead. And I felt I'd done my time with the teaching, and I wanted to move on to something else. And funnily enough, in the summer term of whatever year it was, 2021, some sports leaders came in from the local secondary school, and they came in and they delivered a lesson. And I'd already been involved with sports leaders. I knew that they'd been in and they'd worked in other schools. And I just loved it. And I stepped back, and the teacher I was with, his name was Brett. He had a bit of a tear in his eye because he saw these pupils leading these activities. And these weren't your high-attaining academic pupils that love sport. These were children that had been selected to improve their confidence, their self-belief and everything, because they knew if they could do that, ultimately they'd have more enjoyable time at school. Yes, they'd get better grades, but ultimately they would feel better about themselves. And I kind of spoke with Brett and watched and stood back, and I thought it was just amazing just for somebody to come back, to come into the school and work with the pupils. I thought it was brilliant. It started off a little bit quiet while they found the feet, but by the end of it, they ended up just sitting around once they'd done the session. So how did you find that? And they were just having conversation. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then a job opportunity came up with sports leaders, and I thought, you know what, I've seen that in action. I've seen what it can do. So I want to be a part of that. Applied for that role, which is the secondary lead, and ultimately that brings me sort of to where I am today. So working for what was Sports Leaders, now the Leadership Skills Foundation, working with secondary schools in this country and secondary schools overseas, which again, Nathan, I know you've got experience of that, and we spoke briefly before, and I love that interaction within overseas schools, finding out about their curriculum, finding out about what they do and how that compares, and also giving that advice to schools in this country as well. Because often in the role that I do, conversations are, oh, we want to do this program, we want to do this course, how can we fit it in? Have you got any good examples? And it's great when you can draw upon people, yes, in the same country, but actually we've got a school in Dubai, we've got a school in Qatar, they do it this way. And it doesn't always work this side of the waters, but it gives them ideas, and they can then blend that and sort of adapt that as much as they need to. So that's kind of the journey, I suppose, and where I am today. So I always say I'm not frontline anymore. I'm not down. I'm not in a school. I'm not working with the pupils. I'm very much working with the staff that then ultimately go out and deliver to the pupils.
Brilliant. So before we move forward and start talking about Leadership Skills Foundation in a bit more detail, if we go back to when you were in that position of someone in charge of physical education and doing that curriculum consultancy and working with, a big multi-academy trust. Physical education in primary school then?
Yep.
Or physical education in secondary school, because I know you've worked with both. What makes high quality physical education from your perspective? And what were the sort of things that you were doing or you're encouraging to happen?
I think very much from the experience of being in a primary school, it was giving them that love of being active. And if you can get them enthused and wanting to be active, wanting to take part, naturally everything else falls into place. They want to learn. And you can do that very much hidden through playing sort of games and interacting where they're learning, but they don't always realise they're learning. And then that builds up to when they get into Key Stage 2 and you sort of bring in more sports-specific skills and a bit more focus. So I used to work all the way down to F1, so sort of your 3-year-olds into F2, and we'd go out and they'd say hello to Mr. Darby when he walked through the dining hall, out at playtimes, and they knew that I was the PE teacher in school and they loved PE. And that's what I always wanted. And then as they moved through school, I'd got that relationship. I knew them from a young age, and then I could sort of enhance their PE, which I always would say to the schools that I work with, you've got to have that throughout school. Unfortunately, it's commonplace within primary school where you haven't got that necessarily a PE specialist, and it is delivered by the staff, which is the norm, which is absolutely fine. Sometimes it can be 1 or 2 years where that love might be lost by the pupils, and I think it's really hard to get that back. When I've gone into, say, a new school, that the pupils that are year 4, 5 and 6, it's sometimes difficult to get them back and being engaged. And I'm sure, I know working with secondary schools, if they're coming up into year 7 and they've not got that PE engagement, it's difficult for them to get them re-engaged. So definitely very much giving them that love of being physically active. I probably lost count of the amount of times I would stand in front of the group of children that I had, and I would say, it's about trying to create a love of being physically active. I want you, when you're older, to be going and playing badminton with your children like I do. I want you to be going walking. I want you to be going climbing Snowdon. I want you to be doing all those things where you're being physically active. It's not necessarily about becoming the next professional footballer, which was always my aim and never materialised, or becoming that professional athlete, or even necessarily going into the world of sport if that's not where your life's going to take you. It was more about being enjoying that, being physically active, and that's what I tried to get across to the staff that we work with. I'm very much keen on using the local community as well. I have done a little bit of listening to your podcast to get a little bit of research as well. So I know Kate was on a few weeks ago. I was listening to Kate, and she was saying that she's sort of created a link with the local cricket club when she goes down there, and the social aspect of it. And again, we were getting local cricket clubs coming in, rugby clubs, karate, and just trying to get the children involved, because there's so many different sports out there that they can go to, and you get the social aspects, you get that sort of mental well-being, but ultimately you're creating something that you might do for the rest of your life, or you might just pass on to your children, and you create that sort of own legacy within your family. So I think that was always been my overriding message to the schools that I've worked with: create that love of being active. And then hopefully once they move into secondary school and they've got that and they're bouncing through the doors going, oh yes, PE, what we're doing in PE, the secondary school staff kind of carry that on and develop them further with regards to tactics and being involved in it, and then ultimately leading sessions and things like that as well. So that was always my overriding. That's what I always wanted to do. When they walked out the door of year 6, can I look around this cohort of children? Have they enjoyed the majority of their PE through their life? And it was nice when I spent the time at Arnold Mill, because I actually was there in a period where I took them from being 3 all the way to where they left in year 6. And those 2 final years where I had them, where they'd done that, that's where we had the most engagement with after school clubs, the most engagement with children wanting to represent school. It wasn't me going, does anybody want to take part? Oh, we need some more numbers. They were literally chomping at the bit to go, I want to represent school. Can we go to a competition? Can we do this? And it was because they'd created that enjoyment throughout. So yeah, that would be why I would what I'd always say to staff within that primary school: try and create that love of being physically active.
Amazing. What did, just not putting you on the spot here, but what were they turning up to the lessons, bouncing and looking forward to the most? What worked for you then? So obviously the key message is I want to instill a love for movement, and I want you to encourage you to be involved in physical activity for the rest of your life, in whatever, sort of level or intensity you decide. But when you had those primary PE lessons, what were you doing to try and create that love? What were they looking forward to the most?
Well, I always used to say, it's probably not the professional way of saying it, but it is a lesson where you're having fun with your mates, you're running around and you're having that interaction. Okay. And friendship is so important in through any walk of life, from young to old. I was nearly going to say middle age for me and you then, but sort of through that era, friendship is massive. So you're coming out to me, and I had a team around me. I had a PE assistant and a PE apprentice at one point. There was 3 of us, and you're coming out and we're going to have fun. That's what I want you to have. We're going to have fun, and then everything else is a knock-on effect. Even to the sort of using it as a bit of an example from playing games when you're younger. And again, I know one of your past guests was talking about it. Things like Stuck in the Mud. It seems like such a simple game, and it is a simple game, but then you can run with it and create further games from it. But actually what you're doing there is you're creating dodging movements, that bit of agility, that speed, that balance. So then when I want to look at maybe doing tag rugby with you, when you get to year 4, year 5 and 6, you've already done it because you've played games. You've played certain games that are actually tying into that, and then you'd see the sort of light bulb moment from the children, and they go, oh, it's just like when we were trying to dodge so we didn't get stuck in the mud, or whatever game we were playing. But suddenly you've got a ball in your hand and I want you to run towards that line and use your teammates, and it all sort of fitted into place. So I think that was definitely a big part of it, making it fun, making it that fun time with your friends, and also making it sort of progressive so they could see why they were doing it and there was an outcome to it. We could have gone out every week and played games and there never been an end to that, which was great, but actually they were building those skills up for a purpose, which I just think it was kind of not necessarily a hidden way of doing it, but it was a way of getting them to where I know they should be for their age, and then I could then sort of expand on that. So yeah.
Okay, I think that's a kind of like the Goldilocks thing, isn't it? in terms of getting it just right, because we obviously want it to be really fun and engaging, but there also has to be purpose to what they're doing.
Yeah.
So the busy, happy, good is a thing of the past, I think. But if fun is the thing that hooks them in, then I guess that's a good way to go about it. Let's flick forward then. You're now, well, you did work for the sports leaders, which is now Leadership Skills Foundation.
Correct.
What's the Leadership Skills Foundation's purpose? What can they provide for schools at the minute?
So we ultimately we offer courses around leadership in sport and giving young people that opportunity to develop skills. We talk massively about our skills framework, which ties into 5 key skills. And whenever I have conversations with current schools, new schools, you see the heads nodding and going, "Yeah, that's what I want from our pupils." So you're looking at things like your problem solving, teamwork, communication, your self-belief, and your self-management. And that's what all our programs start off from. That's where they're based, and all the activities within them develop those skills. And then it gives them the opportunity to expand on those skills by leading, by standing in front of maybe their peers, going out into the community, volunteering at local clubs, building up to a level 3 where they're going to run an event and they're going to have up to 150, 200 children sometimes, and they're planning the event from the start to the end, and they are thinking about everything that's involved in that. And we love the feedback we get. There's so much positivity that comes from us, and going, we've got these pupils that maybe started out a little bit shy at the start, and they've gone on, their confidence has just grown, their self-belief, they're walking away from lessons. And it's not necessarily about, as I touched upon earlier, getting those sporty children involved, your high achieving sports pupils. It's about getting young people to develop those skills through leadership. And we offer a range of programs. So we do qualifications and we do awards, but ultimately it is around those five key skills. And I suppose when I came to work for Leadership Skills Foundation, and I looked into what is leadership, and obviously you do a bit of research and you think about it, and then you reflect on your own journey. And so looking at leadership, it was to lead an individual or a group of people to be successful, to a successful outcome. So I kind of look at me and I say I was a leader of a curriculum, or how did I get to that point? So Matt Lawrence, who I touched upon earlier, he was ultimately the head teacher in the school where he employed me. So he was the leader in that school and had very good staff around him. And he put that confidence in me. So via that journey, we were inspected by Ofsted, and we became outstanding across the board in the primary school, so at Arnold Mill, which was amazing. And that was where Matt always wanted to get to, and he very much sort of, when he took me on board, said to get to that stage, I think we need to build it around PE, and PE at the heart of it. We brought in a house system, so we've got competition, and sort of the pupils were competing to get points for their house. So again, that brought a little bit of bouncing into lessons for fun, but also actually, if we're going to compete, I want to get points for my team. I'm feeling that part of a team, part of a family. From that Ofsted inspection, me and Matt were like, okay, well, we want more now. What else do we want to do? We want to showcase what we do, because ultimately we know we do a very good job here, and the staff around us. And I want other people to know that and sort of showcase that. So we went to AFPI, and you're probably aware of the Quality Mark Award that they do. So looked at that, actually spoke to my SGO at the time, and said, oh, that's difficult to get. I'm not sure, it takes a lot of time. Well, that to me was like, okay, well, we're going for that then. We're doing that because you've already said it's difficult to get, and we want to get that as a school, and show where our PE is at. So we went through that, and we were very successful with that, and we got that award, and we were the first school in Nottinghamshire to get that, which I know has then helped other schools to aim to get to that. So that was sort of me being inspired by a leader, and then me going on and being a leader, and then coming to work for Leadership Skills Foundation, being a parent as well, and looking at these key skills and what it can bring, speaking to centres and hearing their feedback about, oh, this young person's gone into this lesson, they've done this. We've had people that have given us quotes about children that have took on dance clubs because they've got involved, they've run dance sessions and been like, right, I want to run a dance after school club. And I think the change it brings to young people and the opportunities it gives them, it is massive. And again, it's not there necessarily for them to go on and be a sports coach, a PE teacher. It's about them having the toolkit and the skills for when they go into employment, and that's what our research tells us. So going into any walk of employment, you want to go in there and you want to be able to fit into a team. You want to work with a team. You want to be a key part of that. You want to understand what everybody's bringing to that team and make sure you feel part of that team. Things like problem solving. So you might be given a task and you might think, okay, I've been given the task and I need to get this task completed, but there's a little bit of thinking from my own point of view to do. So they might need to break that down and analyze that. And again, doing our qualifications, our programs, you have chance to problem solve. Very easy way of doing that is you plan the best session ever. You've headed outside, heaven's open, everything's outside. You've got a dash inside and you've got no equipment. Everything's outside. I'm sure you've been there in the past.
Yeah.
I definitely have.
Many
And
times.
you have to problem solve. You think on your feet, and if you've done it a few times, you can recall on past experience. If you're quite new to leading, you've suddenly got to go, well, we've done a bit of this, right? Okay, I'm going to do this. And it might not ultimately be the best session in the world, what you had planned, but it's a session that are engaging the pupils. And again, you'll learn from that. So it's all those opportunities. And the knock-on effect from that within school environment is any child heading towards their GCSEs, things that schools want to look at improving is self-belief. I believe if you can make a child ultimately feel good about themselves, which every child deserves to have that, they're going to walk into any exam feeling better about themselves and walk in there with the greatest chance of showing their potential and doing exactly what they can do. And I think from our programs, having seen it and experienced it, as in me being in a school and seeing leaders come in from secondary school, from even working with children in year 5 and 6 and developing them as leaders, to now come in and sort of working in the background behind scenes, seeing how that's all put together, having those conversations with schools, and very much as an organisation, we've made our name through sports leaders, but now without going into too much depth, the reason why we're now Leadership Skills Foundation is because it's not just through PE. So we also offer STEM, esports, environment leaders, and all those different subjects as well. So very much expanding and just giving young people that opportunity to develop those skills.
That was going to be my next question, actually, Tom. Is how then do you see it most commonly applied to school settings? Obviously, from my experience, a lot of it is done through physical education, both in the UK and internationally. I've seen the Sports Leadership Awards being delivered through PE. As accredited qualifications as well, of course, they get accredited qualification out of it. But you've just alluded to the fact that it can be done in other subjects. Are your resources being applied to like a curriculum design perspective? How are you seeing schools work with the resource?
Well, that's kind of where we're actually in our evolve strategy, and that's where we're currently working with schools. So we're very much we have things like the environment leaders, which is sort of a trailblazing opportunity, and that's working with WWF and RSPB. And we've currently got around 17 centres that they're going away and delivering it, and then they're giving their feedback so that then we can sort of tweak it and then put it out in September. Things like STEM, that ties in very nicely to the curriculum, but also can be delivered as extracurricular. And I think it's a case of us working with schools and finding out what best fits them and how it fits into their curriculum. And we're always open to those conversations, working with trusts, working with a group of schools to find out how our programs can fit into their curriculum. And we alluded to this prior to getting started with this, about working with schools as well who are designing their own curriculum and then maybe bringing in a sort of an overall leadership program that necessarily doesn't go into one specific subject, but it's about children through sort of personal development sessions, which a majority of schools run now, and developing leadership skills. So there'll be different elements of different subjects that they'd be running and leading, but ultimately it's giving them those skills by sitting in front of other people, leading an activity, and referring back to that, giving them a successful outcome. And a successful outcome can be something small, from being in one lesson to being a successful outcome at GCSEs and beyond that as well. So it doesn't always have to be on a grand scale. It can be just in that one sort of element, that one lesson. So yeah, that's where we're at currently at Leadership Skills Foundation. We've got some other things working sort of behind the scenes. We're very much looking at a leadership program for primary schools as well. So currently we offer one that is based around PE. It's the Playmaker Award, but we're looking at a whole school sort of leadership program that would then tie into different areas within the curriculum, but then teachers could deliver within their settings and ultimately, again, develop those key skills. And then the knock-on effect would be in the other areas as well that they have. So it's exciting times for us. As I say, we're into evolve strategy and listening to feedback, applying that into what we do, and then sort of evolving as an organisation, which is great to be part of. Really enjoying it.
It's brilliant, and also this kind of episode is a good opportunity for us to highlight what Leadership Skills Foundation can and are doing, because I know a lot of people are aware of sports leaders awards and stuff, but they might not be aware of what it's evolving into.
Absolutely.
So it's a good opportunity for you to kind of signpost to what's happening.
Yeah, that's definitely, and that is, as I say, hence the name, and we do get that and go, well, we know sports leaders, who are you guys? And it is, we are exactly the same. 1st of August last year we made that change, and yeah, all going well, positive, but it's still very much about getting that message out there and saying we've still got the sports, we've still got the dance, done that for 40 years, we've still got that's not gone away. However, there are different subjects that you can then build into your setting, your curriculum, and very much for us, our challenge, I suppose, and where we're aiming to be, is getting as many young people as we can involved in leadership. And however the school chooses to do that through whatever subjects, then we're doing our job, because we know the outcomes that we can get from the programs, and ultimately it's setting those children, those young people up when they leave education through a school at 16, go on to college, when they go into employment, they've got the best opportunity to be successful in whatever avenue they take.
Great. So if we move on to the sort of top tips for PE teachers, then, so this can be from a primary or secondary perspective, and you can also link back to obviously the leadership award, if you'd like to. But what would you encourage PE teachers to do on a daily basis in their practice?
So I've made a few notes here, but I'm definitely open to new ideas, and I think that's where what I sort of embraced. Be open to ideas, and again, listening to other podcasts, and they move away from sort of maybe I don't think the correct term, but traditional sports, and open young people's eyes to different sports. So on a day-to-day basis, what can we bring that's different to people's lives? What's going to engage them? So again, previously touched upon it, linking with community, getting people in. So might be difficult to do on a day-to-day basis, but always looking for opportunities, I suppose, on a day-to-day basis. Within a primary school, a secondary school, you've got that connection with pupils, with parents. Those parents often will have a link to a sports club or some kind of club that might be able to come in and support you. The pupils obviously might be part of a club. They might want to come in. And I think, again, enhancing pupils' lives through that opportunity. And it is about PE teachers being open to those ideas and thinking, right, I want to bring in something new. That was always what I thought. And one time we had local university came in and we did American football with the pupils. And again, the reason why I found that out is because one of the pupils I taught, her dad was the head coach, and we were just talking. And he was like, "Oh, I do American football," and I was like, "Right, you're coming in." So we had that discussion, and he came in, and I think we only did 2 sessions in the end. But again, it was certain pupils, and it was just there are other activities out there. So definitely be open to new ideas. Always be asking those questions, speaking to other staff, pupils, parents, see what you can get into support. Look at those opportunities. And very much, and this is across primary and secondary school, and again, referring back to Matt Lawrence, who I spoke about, really get to know your pupils. So going back to being the Arnold Mill days, I can remember going into class and you'd be doing register at the start of the day, and Matt would go around every single classroom, which is amazing as a head teacher, and he'd pop his head in, and he'd pop his head into the class, and he'd know every single child, and he'd ask different children each time, "Oh, you played cricket last night. Oh, how did karate go?" Or something about them, and it made it personal to them. And then everybody else was like, "Oh, I hope my head teacher asks me when he comes in, Mr. Lawrence." And I thought that was really special, because the children, they wanted to talk about their lives, and Matt took a real interest in that. And I think that is important across education. My partner Nico, she's a behaviour mentor, and she works closely with teachers. And she has a really good relationship with the pupils, and she's worked with trainee teachers before. They've gone into sort of a behavioural unit where she's worked, and they've asked us again, what top tip can you give? And she always says, spend time to get to know your pupils, so you've got that common ground. Ask them what they've done at the weekend. If it's around PE and sport and they're involved in a club, brilliant. Or just what have you done to keep active? Have you been anywhere? It might be that they've gone out for a walk. What did you see on your walk? And really get to know those people, so they feel again part of the family, part of that school and that environment, but you know them on a one-to-one level. And I know that's difficult in a sense because of the number of pupils you've got, but I look back at my time and think I would know every child, 300 plus first, second names. It'd be quite fun. We'd be in the staff room and they'd be like, "Oh, what class is this child in?" And they're like, "Tom, what class are these in?" And I'd have to go, "Oh, they're in whichever class," because I knew every child and I knew a lot about them as well. So definitely, yeah, get to know the pupils, because then once you've got that and you can get to them on that one-to-one level, I think that again opens them up to being confident in you and confident in what you're doing in your lessons, and they're more open to explore ideas. So yeah, I think that's definitely a good takeaway.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it's not going to surprise anyone that you talked about relationships, considering how heavily invested you are in leadership and the importance between positive relationships and leadership. And I think you talk quite openly about how inspired you've been by positive people in your life as well. So
Yeah,
I think it's maybe you reflecting on that has shaped your developing practice, and then placed the emphasis on relationships with young people as well, right?
absolutely.
So let's flip the coin. What's some of your biggest frustrations around the PE space at the minute?
So I think definitely, again, we're referring initially to primary PE, and I still don't think that schools necessarily do the best that they can for children in a PE sense. I think there's still a lot more to give, and creating that love of learning through whatever means that needs to be, through planning of sessions, taking on sessions from others, having ideas, exploring different and new opportunities, and getting that out there. And I think going into previous schools before, there was times that were lost when children could be active. And I think I used to, if we were going from a classroom to the field, we didn't just walk there. We'd come up with an activity to do. Very often we'd hopscotch, and I'd give them 4 or 5 different ways to hopscotch. So we're being active. From the word go, we're being active. And it's about being active for 85, 90, 95% of that lesson. Sometimes we'd get out there, warm up, and go, right, area set up, we're going to play this game, and bang, we'd be off. Afterwards, then we'd go, right, today's lesson and what we did last week, bit of review and reflect. We're going to head into this week. So we're already building up our pulse rate. We're already getting going. And I think, again, from my experience, I don't think that's done often enough. And I don't think children are as active as they can be throughout that lesson. And I suppose a bit of that frustration then also does fall in again to maybe into the secondary sector. And again, speaking as a parent here, I know the whole getting changed, and sometimes that can take a long time. And sometimes children are waiting for other children to get changed before they're actually sort of getting active. And for me, that's lost time. That's time where they could be getting active. And we always used to put an emphasis on it. So if we were doing a club where children would get changed at different times, they'd be dismissed from lesson, they'd have to get changed and come to a club. We'd set up their own warm-up. So we'd go into the hall where we'd all meet, and I'd put a quote on the wall, an inspiring quote, or I'd put on your favourite football team, your favourite teacher, what like that, something like that. And around the hall, there'd be different activities, and basically every letter that was in that quote or that their favourite item, they would then do a workout for that. And I always tried to get across to them, the ones that get changed the quickest, the ones who are then in the hall getting working, you're being the most active. You're going to progress the most because you're giving me an extra 5-10 minutes of your time. And I can always remember we had Notts AC coming in, so the local athletics club, and I knew I had some talented sports young people in front of me. So I wanted him to come in, and came in, and it was after school. So I just gone to grab a coffee, and he came in and said, come, we'll go into the hall. And he walked in, and we had about 30, 35 at the club, and 22, 23 were all in the hall doing speed bounce, skipping, loads of different activities. And he'd go, what they all doing? How do they know what to do? And I explained it. And he was like, that's such a good idea, because we're not losing any time. I'm not waiting for everybody to come in and do a register. And I think that's key. If you can be active from the very off, it's always, I suppose, one of my frustrations, Nathan, was we needed COVID for children to then come to school in PE kits. The amount of time in primary school that we were lost to getting changed, especially with younger children, where actually to coming to school in PE kits was actually such a simple but good idea, because actually you come in from registration, playtime, whatever, and your children are ready. I know that's difficult in a sense for secondary schools to do, and there's other elements that come into it. But I think primary schools, if you can do that, again, you've got that 45 minutes, hour, whatever your lesson is, to then have those children being active. Secondary schools, again, I think there's elements of improvement where they could get the children more active right from the beginning. And then obviously tying in Leadership Skills Foundation, and again, both in a primary and a secondary sense, giving the onus a little bit more on the children, letting them learn from what they're doing, and ultimately turning that into a bit of leadership. So I could see the way that I taught evolve from starting out in 2006 to leaving sort of teaching in 2022, and how it was very much I'd go out and I'd run an activity and then we're going to progress and then we're going to do this. Whereas actually, after a few years, it was right, we're going to start with this activity. Right, has anyone got any ideas how we can expand on this? Oh, we'll try this. Okay, we're going to do this. And we did that. Did it work? Yeah, we loved it. Okay, can we expand it more? Can we make it a little bit harder? Can we make it more challenging? Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Oh, that one didn't work as well. And again, that's ultimately the pupils leading in a sense, and this is in a primary sense. Okay, what's your ideas? Tell the group what you want them to do. Let's go with it. And I think, again, in secondary schools, if you can put that back onto the children as well and let them have that impact, that influence on their lessons, I think is a really good way of getting children engaged and also developing those skills. And that's what we always say in meetings about getting those children. If you have got children that maybe don't engage in PE, and we know that there's naturally a drop off, especially in females, sort of around teenage years, well, actually doing a leadership program. Okay, well, you're going to write the session that you're going to deliver, and I want you to make it fun for everybody. I want everybody in this lesson to progress, have a successful outcome, and have fun. And you're going to write the session. I think somebody standing back and going, oh, okay, well, I didn't like it when we did this the other week. I didn't like it when we did this. So this is what we're going to do in my lesson, because I think then I would enjoy that if I was part of it. So it's a really good way of them putting that emphasis back on the young people, and the young people then taking ownership. We talk a lot about in the organisation of empowering young people, and that's exactly what it's all about, giving them sort of a little bit of a license to run with it, run their sessions, engage people, get the feedback from it as well. And be open to that, getting feedback, again, what worked well, what didn't, and learning from that. And then do you apply that into your next session or going into your next lesson? You've had that bit of feedback, are you going to apply that? And is that going to improve you as an individual?
Yeah, a lot of what you said echoes what Kate Reynolds previously said around using student voice to remove barriers first and foremost, but then to increase the amount of physical activity, right? And that's what we should be looking to do, whether it's primary or secondary.
Absolutely.
Place the focus on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So this is always a tricky part. Can you try and summarise the key messages for the listener from today's episode?
I'll try. So obviously we've got the impact, and you touched upon it, and you worded it probably better than I will myself, and me reflecting on the positive role models and the relationships I've had in my life and how that have inspired me to be the person I am today. And I think in physical education, we've got that the role where we can do that, so we can inspire young people through great leadership, giving them the opportunity to lead. So I definitely would say that. And also about, I keep referring back to creating that love of learning and being physically active. And again, I know your other guests have talked about sort of non-negotiables, movement, being active, sort of intertwining PE and sport. It becomes one to a certain extent, and then from that you can sort of separate it if needs be. So yeah, I suppose positive role models, that how they impact on people's lives, and that being physically active, and how you can then create that love of learning and of life for young people, which I speak of from a professional basis, but also as a parent as well. I'm always one for trying to get the children involved as much as possible. Not always that keen, but we're trying.
Yeah, I know what that feels like. So I think where can anyone who's listening that is interested in finding out more about Leadership Skills Foundations and the courses and programs they offer, where can they find out?
So obviously you can head over to the website. So we had a website launch last year, so leadershipskillsfoundation.org. We are going to look at doing a little bit of a Q&A probably on the back of this, Nathan, where people might have watched it and thought, I'd like to ask Tom a question. I'd like to find out a little bit more about me potentially, but also about Leadership Skills Foundation. So once we've created that, we will share that on X. And possibly once this is ready to go out as well, I'll share it with you, and you can always share it that way. So people can get in touch. We are fairly active on X as well, so people can get in touch from either direct message or following, sometimes put on links on there where you can get in touch. And it is very much, take a look at that on our website. We've got everything from all the programs and the awards that we offer. Another area that we've not even touched on, and just to put this in there, we also offer PE specialism training for primary teachers as well. All the way from a level 2 up to a level 6. So the level 6 looks at PE leads. So we have what we class as PQCs, professional qualification centres, and they deliver that. So PE teachers and primary school staff will go along to that, and it looks a lot more into PE as a specialism. and how that can be developed in school. So you can find out about that. And so if you've got staff that you think, oh, I want to enhance their PE knowledge and get them involved, we've got things like that on the website. Obviously, there's ways of getting in touch. There's some great case studies on there. We've just had one from Dubai British Schools, which talks about how they implement leadership over in their school and the impact it has. And then also on there, there's any new programs, any new sort of things that are on the horizon where people can sort of almost submit an expression of interest, and they can get in touch with us via that as well. So yeah, lots of different avenues to get in touch. But if any of this resonates with people that are listening and watching, then I would definitely say get in touch, speak to myself or one of my colleagues. We know the impact of leadership and the importance it has, and what it can bring to young people's lives. And yeah, I suppose, again, looking at my career, and I'm sure yourself, hopefully people are sat there going, oh yeah, I can remember this head teacher, this captain in my team, this senior leader I had, and what they sort of provided for you, and that and what that can bring. So yeah, I'd definitely say that as well. So yeah, website, Twitter, and you can get in touch with us, and we can arrange meetings and things like that, and look out for the Q&A.
Brilliant. Tom, been an absolute privilege having a conversation with you today. I really enjoyed listening to, finding out more about Leadership Skills Foundation first and foremost, but also your insights around how leaders have inspired you to become the person you are today and how that's shaping your practice moving forward. And hopefully people that have maybe not heard about Leadership Skills Foundation before will now be signposted and can find out a little bit more. So thanks for joining me on the PE Insights podcast. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.